up to this point, in fact, up until you and the Duke of Marlborough, the special relationship was a special relationship between the intelligence communities. And so MI6 and GCHQ and CIA and NSA had a special relationship, which really meant we will lie, cheat, and steal for each other, never mind our publics and never mind the Queen and never mind the President. John Brennan, with Gina Haspel as his chief of station in London, single-handedly destroyed the special relationship between the United Kingdom and the United States of America at that level. And so I will shamelessly pander to you and say that you and the Duke of Marlborough are now the proud owners of what's left of the possibilities of a special relationship between the United States of America and the United Kingdom. We have to make the special relationship about people and about trusting relations, not about the intelligence communities conniving with one another.
Well, it's very interesting that you said that, because His Grace the Duke of Marlborough is exceptionally a humble and noble man, and he would never accept that compliment. But actually, I have said the exact same thing to him, and when he originated the invitation to the president and also helped introduce the idea of the global reforestation program, which the president picked up and will now result in an extra 25% tree cover for planet Earth, an extra 1 trillion trees. That concept was delivered to the president through His Grace the Duke of Marlborough and has added to this very important special relationship. But I know that they're meeting at Blenheim Palace when the president first arrived here, and the subsequent times that they've spent in Mar-a-Lago and other conversations, of course, and they speak regularly, has completely revitalized. And the people in this country actually have no idea at all what His Grace the Duke of Marlborough has done, completely independently of any politician, because, of course, His Grace does not have any formal political role. But, you know, friendships are friendships, and they are very, very powerful. I will tell you, and it's a little-known story, of the actual origins of the special relationship, which occurred just before the First World War, when there was a walk. Roosevelt was a great bird lover, and he could identify. He was an ornithologist. We call them over here twitchers, and they're people that go out bird watching. And he knew every single bird song by name. He could recognize by ear. He could say, well, I can hear that bird song. It's a particular type of bird song. And he was very curious about English bird songs, and he was corresponding with the then Foreign Secretary, who was Lord Edward Grey, who was the Foreign Secretary in the lead up to the First World War. And Lord Edward Grey had a fishing cottage by the side of the River Itchen. And Lord Grey invited Roosevelt to come over to England to walk down the banks of the River Itchen to see whether or not English bird songs had any similarity to American bird songs. So one afternoon they walked down the riverbank and they found that the only bird which had a song in common was that of the golden-crested wren, whose bird song was identical, the goldcrest, they call it. Anyway, it was very interesting because when the president came to England to meet Her Majesty, he was armed with this interesting anecdote as a result of our sort of friendship and so on and so forth. So there's no question that this was the origins of it. And of course, then Churchill later on developed it tremendously, but that was where it started. It started with the love of nature and with the love of Roosevelt's love of bird songs. And this is actually the beginnings of the special relationship.
Exactly.
And Gray wrote all about it in his diary, and I have a copy of his diary, in my library here at Camelot Castle. It's so important, this special relationship, and it is very good that you, Robert, have recognised what His Grace has done.
And Robert is right. It's not about the intelligence exchange. It is about human interaction and friendship.
It's also about trust and not lying to each other. Let me tell you the other FDR story. FDR went to meet this was before the Americans had a real intelligence community. He went to meet the intelligence leaders in England, and they said, we have a fellow who's just been behind enemy lines. So they brought in a guy, and he basically briefed the President FDR on how he had parachuted into Germany, and he had done all these things, and then he had made his way out and been picked up by a small boat. All lies. The President of the United States was lied to by the British intelligence community from day one. So let's have that in sharp contrast. I would like to see the day come when I'm welcome in London. I'm not sure I'm allowed now to come back to England, although I'll never forget that my ancestors in the 17th century, their stone hut, a wool weaver, was still standing 40 years ago when my father went to look. So I'm certainly from England in some ways. But I think intelligence has let us all down. Intelligence should be about decision support. And there's an excellent Israeli, Ben Gilad, who wrote a book called Business Blind Spots, in which he quotes a CEO as saying, until you get the truth on the table, no matter how ugly it is, you're not in a position to deal with it. I believe that British leadership and American leadership are being lied to every single day by the intelligence community, either actively or by omission. General Tony Zinni is on record as saying that the U.S. intelligence community delivers, at best, 4% of what a president or a major leader needs. So my goal is to see Mike Flynn become 100% intelligence leader who delivers only the truth for the president and everybody else that needs it.
That's a wonderful intention. I think it's very important. Sort of based on what you just said, earlier on you touched upon 9/11 lies, which was part of the cartoon. So maybe we could quickly cover that.
I've published a book on 9/11. It's free online. Again, everything I do is free. So the tinyurl.com/ is 911-POTUS. Let me just say that the president himself has said that those buildings were brought down by controlled demolitions. And in South Carolina in 2016, he promised that he would one day disclose everything about 9/11, just as I believe we now know the truth about John F. Kennedy, killed by his own government. What's important to know about 9/11 was that planning for this event started in 1988. 1988. Wow. There's a fellow that writes in our book, a guy named Gordon, who was part of the architectural team that was documenting the decay of the buildings. The Twin Towers were condemned by the Environmental Protection Agency in 1988. And they said that the Twin Towers would have to be brought down. Remember, they're owned by the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey. So this is a big problem for the states of New York and New Jersey. And they were the owners of the property until July of the year in which the towers were brought down by controlled demolitions. So 1988, the EPA says we're condemning these towers, but you can't bring them down with controlled demolitions because there's too much asbestos, too many toxins, and so forth. This became an immediate $2 billion a year albatross because it would have to be manually deconstructed. This is very hard to do, very expensive. I believe that somewhere between 1988 and 1990, there was a discussion at the highest levels of the New York and New Jersey governments about insurance fraud, about finding a way to create a controlled demolition that could be blamed on terrorists or something, and it would allow them to do controlled demolitions and also get insurance. I think these ideas then went dormant until Dick Cheney came into power as vice president. And at that point, I believe that Dick Cheney saw an opportunity for an event that would allow a police state at home and endless war abroad. And I will say no more about 9/11 other than to confirm my view that it was a false flag event. The so-called terrorists were given passports by Saudi Arabia. That is the only role that Saudi Arabia played in all of this. And John Brennan, as chief of station in Saudi Arabia, personally issued the American visas to all of the patsies allegedly involved in 9/11. So John Brennan was very involved in 9/11. John Brennan was also involved with Dusty Krongard in the Cold War against Russia. And we have a chapter on the Cold War in the book. Essentially, the United States used, or the intelligence community, CIA, under George H.W. Bush's direction and Dick Cheney, used $240 billion in offshore gold to finance a gold war to destroy the economy of Russia. And that money was laundered in 9/11. Nothing hit any of the computers. But because of 9/11, extraordinary transactions were allowed to clear, and CIA was able to launder $240 billion worth of transactions as part of the event. There was also insurance fraud in that all of the gold and jewels and other things stolen in the vaults were taken out prior to the event. And I don't know if this is true or not, but I have it on good authority that a number of people were warned to stay out of the building, and that a number of prominent people had hotel suites overlooking the Twin Towers to observe the event. Two last comments. The dogs were taken out of the buildings 2 weeks prior to the event and not allowed to return. We have video evidence of the controlled demolitions being implanted. And last but not least, airplanes did not hit the Twin Towers. These are steel beams every 14 inches. An airplane basically crumbles, and then the titanium engines and wings fall to the ground. I'm not sure if we have a chapter on this or it came out later, but the Air Force has some very advanced holographic capabilities. And there is a known Air Force plane that was flying above the Twin Towers, which was in a position to beam a holographic image of an airplane flying into the Twin Towers. And if you recall, this image goes through the towers as if it's going through butter. Okay, it's just zip, it just disappears. That's a holographic image. That's not a real airplane. I think our president will disclose everything in his own good time. I'm not going to second guess him. I'm quite certain he knows in detail. And oh, by the way, we delivered this book to him on the 8th of August of 2018.
Well done you.
Well done you. Amanda Jane Eliash, who, as I said, is a young lady who's joined us this evening. She's helped build the $1 billion head fortune and advises various different and counsels various different leaders in London and in Paris and in New York as well. She says this man is brilliant.
And unemployed.
Well, there you go. They go
together.
Well, you know what? Sometimes, cometh the hour, cometh the man. This. I think people are ready for this, and I'm looking at we're also joined tonight by Mike Ricketts, who is a great community leader, and he just says, "Wow, this is incredible."
And Joanna said that explains why no airplane parts were found on site of.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. In fact, the Pentagon, we have one of our authors was a special assistant to Ronald Reagan. And in fact, she's the lady, Barbara Honegger, she's the lady who is famous for having said that President Reagan asked Bill Casey, when will we know the American intelligence community has succeeded? And she is the lady who says that Bill Casey responded, Mr. President, we will have succeeded when everything every American believes is a lie. Okay, I am the opposite of Bill Casey. I want to get to the day when everything the president hears and everything the American public learns is the truth. In fact, I'll tell you very quickly, I was on Capitol Hill briefing the senior national security advisor for Senator Pat Roberts, who back in the day honored my second book with a foreword. That was The New Craft of Intelligence. Senator Boren wrote the foreword to my first book on intelligence. And so she gave me courtesy because the senator had once been nice to me, and I was pitching her on the open source agency, which has been approved twice by the Office of Management and Budget at $2 billion a year. And that would fund the president's Truth Channel, the Trump Studio, and the president's own intelligence capability. And so she said after 5 minutes, she said, okay, what's the purpose of this agency? What's its mission? I said, its mission is to tell the truth about everything. She literally got up and walked out the door without a word to me. Congress today does not want the truth today. The Senate Banking Committee does not want the president or the American public to be focused on the fact that the Senate Banking Committee is a partner in crime with Wall Street in stealing $100 trillion from Main Street, from pension funds, from cops and firefighters and nurses and teachers. Wall Street has stolen America's seed corn. And the good news is the president can get it back without going to trial.
Well, this is fantastic. Now, I'm going to ask, our people here that are watching, I just want to survey them. Do we feel that it would be better off for this planet, as horrible as some of this information is that we've heard tonight? And I want to thank you very much for your courage, Robert, for being willing.
It's not courage. I just don't know any better.
Would it be better off just to get this information out into the open, to share it with one another so that we're all aware of what's going on? Or would it be better just to keep it all covered up and we all pretend that business as usual and that Hillary Clinton's a lovely lady and Barack Obama's a lovely man and we just continue on? Or should we open things up? And if we should open things up, if you believe that we should open things up fully and have full disclosure in every single area from, we had Dr. Stephen Greer on here the other night, and those of you that haven't seen that interview, you'll find that on our YouTube channel. Should there be full disclosure of UFOs and ETs? Should there be full disclosure of what exactly did happen with JFK? Should there be full disclosure? Sure.
On 9/11.
On 9/11. Should there be full disclosure? Should there be full disclosure on Wall Street?
How about full disclosure on everybody that Jeffrey Epstein ever entrapped with pedophilia videos?
Yes.
That includes a lot of judges in New York City and Washington, D.C.
That is probably more important
Sorry,
than anything
could you
else.
just repeat that?
I said we should also have full disclosure on everybody that Jeffrey Epstein ever blackmailed with pedophilia videos. That includes a lot of judges in New York City and Washington, D.C.
Now, I have a question for you. Did Jeffrey Epstein kill himself?
No. He's still alive. I don't have the exact address, but Epstein is either living in luxury in Israel or, more likely, he's in a mink-lined safe house deep inside of a U.S. military base singing like a bird.
Well, I have to say that the pictures that they released didn't look that much like him.
Well, not only did they not look that much like him, they were actually photos of a fire unit practicing in a fire station, not in the actual hospital. This was a complete setup. What I'm reading and hearing is that Epstein was evacuated by a military van. And this whole thing is just nonsensical. I'm completely stunned by what Americans are willing to believe.
Well, not only Americans, unfortunately.
And by the way, Robert Maxwell, who is Ghislaine Maxwell's father.
Yes.
Robert Maxwell was one of the greatest Mossad agents in history. He managed to put computer penetrations into all governments. And one of the things that the Israelis do brilliantly is they penetrate computers to do insider trading and intellectual property theft. Okay, so good on them if we're too stupid to fix it. I wrote the first warning letter to the White House in 1994 on cyber vulnerabilities, and I was ignored. It's my curse to be 40 years ahead of everybody and to be ignored for 40 years. But you're right. Now is the time. I believe that Robert Maxwell was not killed at sea either. I believe they faked his death, and then he resettled and was lived out his days in Europe. There's a lot of good that comes from faking your death when you're in certain circumstances.
Well, it wouldn't be the first time, and it is very, very interesting. Now, for those of you that have just joined, can I ask you to share this feed? Create what we call watch parties. The way you do that is you press share, you look down, it says create watch party, and then you think, and that if that is the only courageous thing that you do tonight, that would be a great contribution.
We would appreciate that.
But we'd also appreciate it if you could take a copy of the link and WhatsApp it to every single person in your address book. You can only do 5 at a time, so it's a little bit of work, but send this out as a WhatsApp. That's what I do, and I'm a very busy guy, and I've got plenty of other things to do in my life, but I take every single interview that we do, and I send it out to people who I believe are opinion formulers and opinion leaders. So I do think it's very important. Now, from your journeys and your experience, is there anything else that you feel that our audience should know about or should be looking at now? You've got a lot. We've got well over 1,000, 2,000 truth seekers online right now. These are intelligent people. They are very, very bright. They're very, very noble spirits. What can they do to help you, Robert?
No, vote for President Trump. Let's start there.
Let's start.
The president needs to win, but I'm really concerned. I'm very concerned. I have 2 pollsters, one on the left and one on the right. And somewhere in there, I get a very good grip on everything. I'm worried because between Google manipulating votes and the secretaries of state in all of the Democratic states manipulating the vote, and Trump's not taking the actions that I'm recommending on a truth channel, on election reform, and on Cynthia McKinney and blacks in general, I think he is still vulnerable to losing to a rigged system. If he wants to win the mother of all landslides, he needs to take a hard look at taking money back from Wall Street, play a tough on Wall Street card, election reform, create Web 3.0. That's not the president doing a fireside chat 3 times a week. I mean, I think Candace Owens and this guy we've talked about, Michael, whatever, they're brilliant aides to the president. But you don't become a world-class intelligence officer by the time you're 30. It takes time and experience and many, many people that you know. The president is not pulling in the best talent that wants to help him, whether it's black or white or green or brown or yellow. And so I'm concerned that he is in a rut in some areas. And I would like very much to see him consider some of these suggestions, because he absolutely should win the mother of all landslide. And I will end with my final thought. The American taxpayer should not be paying for a single square foot of floor space for media scum. We need to throw the press out of the White House and turn that area into a proper presidential command center.
Very interesting idea.
I love that.
Very interesting idea.
I published a floor plan.
Well, I think it's a very interesting idea. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you to all of our friends on here who have been sharing this feed. It is very, very much appreciated. And Robert, because our family, since about 1775, 1 year before the great country of America was founded, has been introducing new ideas to the world. Very often, one isn't always thanked. And when you are ahead of the curve, when you are intelligent, or when you are schooled in methods of intelligence, it is a bit of a burden because you see things that other people don't see. But I think the good news for you, Robert, is that the world is now catching up to where you have been. You may now be only 20 years ahead of your time, as opposed to having been 40 years ahead of your time.
Actually, I think I'm 4 now.
You're 4 years ahead.
Agree.
Good.
Agree.
Well, that's good. I'm glad you feel that way. And I just wanted to say, I'm looking at the comments here. You can see them afterwards.
Yes, they're beautiful comments.
Beautiful, beautiful comments. The appreciation that people have. And, one of the things that a lot of our followers, we have all different religious faiths on here, and we have atheists on here, to be honest with you. We try and convert them into the idea that there may be a creator, but, we respect their right.
The atheists don't know it yet. They're talking to God. They just haven't figured it out.
They'll get the hang of it eventually. But you know what? They're welcome. And I would just like to say that you will be in our prayers. And both Irina and I would like to say thank you to you.
Yes.
On behalf of all the people out there that I'm sure would love to say thank you to you, but haven't quite worked out that they should get around to doing so. Eventually they will. And thank you so much, Robert, for really, you've done the best part of a half a century of work in this area, perhaps even more. You've put in hours and hours and hours. Most of it you haven't been paid for. And I'm sure you survived perfectly adequately. But you know what? Thank you so much. And I would just ask everybody on here shares this feed tonight, because what you have heard tonight and the resource that you now have access to, I mean, Robert's website is an extraordinary intelligence resource. Follow him on Facebook. I don't know if you use Twitter, Robert, do you?
Yes.
I occasionally push stuff out on Twitter, but really phi-beta-iota.net and robertdavidsteele.com are the two free sites, as well as stopnakedshortselling.org. Although I just found out Google blocks anything with the word naked in it. So naked short selling or the naked truth, apparently Google doesn't approve of that. But yeah, everything I do is free. And everything I do these days is committed to helping the president win the mother of all landslides so that he can use 4 years to create a global triumph that will last 100 to 1,000 years. And let me tell you, I'm paying for some cartoons. The last cartoon that I'm paying for shows President Trump on Mount Rushmore. Ben Garrison is already making it.
I love
Well, that is fantastic. Do send that through and I'll show it to our viewers when it's ready. Thank you so much, Robert. I hope you come on again. Because, frankly, I know that we haven't even begun to even begin to tap your understanding of life and what is truly going on in the world. You've got people from Hawaii tuning in. You've got people from all over the world saying thank you so much, Robert. And let
me jump in and just tell people that they can get all of my book reviews because I stand on the shoulders of others. So if they go to robertdavidsteele.com or they go to phi-beta-iota.net, they'll see reviews, and they can review all 2,000 reviews. Or if you'll permit me, my lecture to Berkeley Springs to the Arlington Institute is free online in both movie form and graphic form, and it's at tinyurl.com/steele-top-books. I identify the 25 cosmic life-changing books that I've read out of 5,000 books. And then I discuss the other 2,000 books in 26 categories that should become a national conversation. I mean, I look at this, what's this trending America? What is it that Michael's doing in America? Mobilizing students.
Turning Point.
Turning Point.
Yeah, Turning Point. Okay.
Charlie Kirk.
Turning Point should be leading a national conversation about what kind of country do we want to be. They can start by reading those book reviews.
Well, that's very kind. Point. That's a good idea. And I'm definitely going to be sending this to Charlie Kirk.
Mark, could you please put Robert's website addresses in the comments so everybody has them? Thank you.
That'd be great.
Yeah, they could also look me up. I mean, Google still keeps trying to push me down, but I am the only Robert David Steele that comes up when you search for the name.
I don't think anybody's going to successfully suppress you, Robert. Something tells me that you have a spiritual resistance that is endued to you by the Creator. And may God bless you. And everybody I'm looking at the comments here. I mean, people are absolutely delighted. Even Californians, my gosh. Which is experiencing a shift. I think California's experienced a little bit too much socialism.
Look what they said.
I'm never returning to California. I couldn't put gas in my tank because the California device for protecting the atmosphere was so complicated, I could not get the gas to go into the car.
Yeah, well, I put your website on the screen.
All right.
And thank you thank you. We will speak to you soon, and we'll get you back on for another show because everybody loved it so much. Everybody loved you. Well done.
Well, I'd be glad to do anything. And Irina, thank you very much for your role in helping this really turn out good. You're the better half of this duo in some ways.
That's absolutely true.
Thank you, Robert. It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
We'll say goodbye.
Oh, it's my huge honor to be with you.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you indeed. Thank you. Now, I'm going to take that off screen and I'm going to say goodbye to Robert there. Hang on 1 second. How do we do this?
Thanks,
there we
Robert.
go. So that was pretty extraordinary. That is Robert David Steele, and I would suggest that you, you go to his website and take a look at various different things that are going on.
All the books reviews, I'm really interested to read.
Yeah,
them.
some of those book reviews are very, very good, and this is an incredibly well-read man, and it takes a lot to keep Irina. I mean, we were speaking to him on the phone the other night for, my gosh,
hours.
We
couldn't.
Hours and hours. So, on a lighter note, we were sent something tonight by Candice Owens that I wanted to share with you. Tomorrow night, we have coming on the great Dr. Shiva, which should be very interesting.
That's exciting.
And he is going
He's back.
He's back. Dr. Shiva is back. And he'll be with us tomorrow night. I'll play you a little intro clip later. But on a lighter note, seeing as we've been listening to all this rather, it can get depressing confronting the evil, but I think we do have to confront it.
And I think we're making progress.
Yeah. Good. I mean, listen, somebody says, I find the bit about the Twin Towers odd. Okay, fine. You know what? Here's the thing. The table was round for a reason. This is Camelot Castle. This is a buyer beware program. Nobody's saying that what you're hearing on here is true. It's up to you. You listen to it. You check it out. You do your research.
Yeah.
We can't do your thinking for you. All we can do is present to you some ideas that possibly you haven't heard
And,
before.
Robert just mentioned it. He spent a few minutes talking about it, but he mentioned there's a book about it. He wrote a book on Twin Towers, so you can look it up on his website, and there's a lot of information there, which maybe would make more sense.
Well, you're right. But what did you make of when we spoke to Robert the other night? Some of the other stuff that he talked about?
Well, I mean, some of the things we couldn't even get into on this broadcast, but they were quite fascinating and very insightful and made a lot of sense, really. Some of them.
They were. They really were.
Which, it would have been good to talk about them, but maybe next time.
Maybe next time. So I'm going to show you this little clip that we found. See if you enjoy it. This is about the coronavirus. And here we go.
I'm so fucking depressed. I fucking hate my life. My dad thinks I'm a piece of shit. I've never accomplished anything because he's the fucking CEO of Microsoft and I'm a dumb germ. I can't go out. Yeah, I want friends. I want to be friends with people. Do you know what it's like? You know how hard it is to go to a party when your cousin is SARS? Yeah, my cousin's SARS. I'd love to meet this old bitch. My dad is Bill Gates. My mother's a bat. You think your family's fucked up? I wake up every day and there's another fucking news story that's not true. Hi, Corona. 6 feet. Stay 6 feet. I'm trying to help these people. They're fucking stupid. People are saying I live in farts. What kind of fucked up shit is that? Did I live in someone's asshole? Candace Owens doesn't even believe I'm real. Let me catch that bitch. Let me catch that bitch in a Whole Foods. I'll go right up her nose. You will not be able to transmit me to humans, but I have infected you. My dad's always like, yeah, we're gonna give you to every single person. That's what my dad wants to do. He wants to put a little bit of me in a needle and give it to 8 billion people. What do you think that does to my sense of self? I'm fucking real deal. You don't even know how I'm gonna affect you. Nobody knows. I might like your body, I might not. I go into some of these bodies, I'm like, get me the fuck out of here. Has anyone ever asked me what the fuck I want to do with my life? I want to be something. I want to have a lifestyle brand. I want to have a clothing line, baby. Nobody's asked me that. Nobody asked me to be in a fucking TikTok. Nobody wants to, be in a TikTok with COVID-19. No one wants that. So I'm just fucking alone all the time. I wish I was AIDS. I want to be AIDS! Do you hear me? I want to be AIDS! Ah!
get that from?
We can thank Candice Owens for that. She sent that this afternoon, and there we go. That's what it's like to be Corona. So, tomorrow night, who do we have? This is a little trailer for tomorrow night.
Pocahontas is not happy. She's not happy. She's the worst.
Elizabeth Warren earning that nickname after a false claim to Native American heritage. And it's not going anywhere. Her opponent in the Massachusetts Senate race is now using it.
I think only a real Indian can defeat the fake Indian.
MIT grad and entrepreneur Dr. Shiva Ayyadurai even sent Warren a DNA kit, which she returned. He tweeted, "I am deeply saddened Senator Warren refused my thoughtful, gift-wrapped birthday gift, the 23andMe DNA test kit. Most unfortunate, hashtag fake Indian." Dr. Shiva joins me now. So you're a real Indian, and you're running against a so-called fake Indian. Do you think that's resonating among the folks of Massachusetts?
It's resonating big time, and it's resonating across all demographics, Jesse. Not only everyday people, but also people who you'd think would not find it funny. The so-called educated elite. They also can't stop cracking up.
You know what? You just brought up something about the death count, and I wanted to touch on that with you. We are hearing reports from doctors who are saying they are being instructed to count deaths as coronavirus deaths, even if the person died from a different condition, but at some point in time had contact with somebody who had coronavirus. Dr. Birx just came out and said they're classifying everybody with the virus as a death instead of dying from the virus as a death. Why do you think that they are classifying this way? Why do you think there's an exaggeration in the numbers here, if you think there's an exaggeration in the death count numbers?
Look, what I do know is this, that the WHO, in conjunction with the CDC, is the one that decides what are called codes, diagnosis codes. Most people don't know, when you go into a doctor's office, a doctor looks at you, and in their IT systems, they have to say, okay, Christina has this or this. That is called a diagnosis code. That code, Christina, comes from the WHO. So for coronavirus, as I understand, they created two codes. One code was you explicitly, had a test and you had COVID-19. The other one was completely nebulous. Well, it sort of smells like that. Maybe he's got some chest pains. Something so broad, but it was still under the COVID. The doctors in the United States received a letter from the CDC, as I have found out, that went to hospital administrators encouraging them to blur both of those codes. So if someone comes in, they have a pre-existing condition, someone with a chest pain, COVID-19.
Dr. Shiva will be with us tomorrow night live from Camelot Castle TV network, and we are going to be discussing hydroxychloroquine.
Wow.
And what this actually does or doesn't do, and very, very interesting man.
We'll discuss some other things too,
and we're going to discuss some other things too. We're going to discuss some other things too. So it's been lovely spending some time with you. And then on Tuesday night, we will have the British supermodel and television actress Leliani Dowding. So I've already put up the link for that, and you can sign up for that right now, and you will then be alerted to the broadcast. Anyway, let's hear what Dr. Shiva has to say tomorrow night, and we
really
will leave
looking
you.
forward to it.
Yes. Did you have any final thoughts, darling?
It's good to have him back. He was fascinating last time he came on.
He was great, wasn't he?
Very good, very good.
Good evening. Good night. See you soon.
Good night, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. See you tomorrow.